guys, welcome to another episode of my vlog. This week I made a little trip to the East Coast. I came back and played some poker at the Wynn, and then at the end of the vlog I also cover my approach to bankroll management in case you're curious. So hope you guys enjoy watching. Our little venture out to New York started off with a bit of a mess. I forgot to bring a jacket, so I had to buy this ugly Vegas souvenir sweater. Then my passport went for a swim in my bag. Yes, that is a kangaroo on the cover of the Australian passport. Then to cap it off, we were delayed and sat on the tarmac for over 2 hours. When I finally emerged from Penn Station, the city was as gorgeous as I remember, with the addition of a few pickleball courts. That's another one. Not bad. It's like no soundproofing, but it's actually quite nice. Is there a view? I'm asking for too much, I know, but let's just see how bad it is. Okay, just nothing. One of the first things I do when I get into a hotel room. Who is that hot all the time? Pretty crummy start to the holiday weekend. I was meant to go to a friend's barbecue. I was meant to land at 5 and head on straight over, but I landed about 3 hours later and so exhausted by then. I landed at 8 and got to the city just now pretty much and checked in, so missed all of that, but it's okay. I am seeing her tomorrow for lunch, so that'll be great. I'm just gonna have a chill night in. I ordered some salmon don and a pork bun from this Japanese restaurant down the road. So yeah, we're just gonna do that. I had this grand plan. I was like, okay, well, if I'm not gonna make the barbecue, I'm gonna get home, I'm gonna do my makeup, wear some nice clothes, and actually like go out and see civilization, sit at a bar somewhere, have a drink. But yeah, clearly that didn't happen. Hey, I might still go out for a drink, but I don't know. I'm pretty tired from that exhausting flight and the 2.5 hours we sat on the tarmac before we even took off. So, thank you, Spirit. I mean, I say I'll never fly them again, but I am signed up for the Savers Club, so probably will fly them again very soon. Does it count if I got a drink at the rooftop of the hotel? The next day, we ventured out into the city for a quick walk before meeting up with friends for lunch. We went to Isla & Co, which I booked, and I didn't realize it was an Australian restaurant, which is a funny coincidence. They have a really extensive espresso martini menu, which I tried and can attest to. Then after brunch, we went to the Morgan Museum and Library, which is a small museum owned by the Morgan family, which I didn't actually know was related to JP Morgan, which is the company that my friend works for, so we got free tickets. They had some amazing artwork and architecture to check out, but my favorite was just looking through the bookshelves for first editions of classics. Also, I was shocked to see that they actually had a picture of me in the museum. Yep, there it is. Then at night, I made my way down to K-Town or Koreatown to meet up with some other friends for dinner. We went to this place. I can't say I really recommend it. I get making us wait until most of our party was here, but once we got inside, we felt really rushed. I will say the food was decent though. Anyways, nobody wanted to go home after dinner, so we got dessert. Then we joined some other friends at Bo Beep, which had a live performer that took requests, which was really cool. Just full of gratitude for all my friends that came to hang out. It felt like old times, and it really made me miss New York. There's this special feeling about walking around New York at night. It's like anything is possible. The night is young. Let's go hit up another bar or get some pizza. Yeah, I'll probably take a few more opportunities to come out here when I can. But it was just so good seeing my friends. The next morning and my last half a day in New York, I went down to the Union Square area and went to my favorite brunch spot, which is ABC Kitchen. I ordered the mushroom pizza, as I always do, then walked to Union Square Park. I decided to test fate by stepping in this very unlucky spot, thinking it was all fun and games, and I came to regret this decision when I arrived at the airport.
Once we receive any further new up or estimated time of departures for your flights, we will make an announcement.
In this first hand, we have Jack 9 offsuit in the big blind. Button raises to 30, small blind calls, and I decide to call. The flop is King 5-3, all hearts. Nothing much at all on this board, and it checks around. Turn is the 9 of diamonds, which is a glimmer of hope for us to win the hand. It checks around again, which I'm quite happy with. I'm not sure I'm beating any hands that want to bet here, so it would be kind of hard to call anything. Now we just gotta hope it's somewhat of a clean river, and it is. It's the 6 of diamonds. I mean, 7-8 gets there, but I think we have the best hand enough to bet once the small blind checks, so that's what we do. And we get a fold from the button, but looked up from the small blind. Fortunately, we have the winning hand, as he also has a 9, but was outkicked. This was kinda thin, so I checked the spot. Of course, you can't sim multi-way, but I simulated it as small blind versus big blind, and it turns out it's even too thin to bet heads up without the 9 of hearts. Jack of hearts would have rarely made it to the river checking twice, so it's just super relevant to have the 9 of hearts if we want to bet. In this hand, we have ace queen of clubs in the low jack. We open to 30 and button calls. The flop is king jack rainbow. I bet 30 and he calls. Turn is another jack. I check and he checks. River is an 8, so I bet 140 to fold him off a chop. Both of us could really still have kings and jacks in our range, considering the turn is a kind of way behind, way ahead kind of situation. Anyway, it wasn't enough to get him off his ace, so we chop it up. The very next hand, we have queen 10 off in the big blind. There's a limp from hijack, so we make it 40 in the big blind and he calls. The flop is 7-4 deuce rainbow. I bet, trying to get ace highs and king highs to fold, but he does not fold. The turn is the 8 of spades, and we continue telling the story that we have something by betting 150 this time, and he continues to call. The river is a 10. Now, I think we most certainly have the best hand here. Even if he had a 10, it would most likely be Jack 10 or 10-9 suited, unless he has 2 pairs, so we bet 250, hoping to get looked up by a single pair hand, and we get it. Next, we pick up ace king for what feels like the gazillionth time this session. You haven't seen any in the vlog because basically we lost small annoying pots every time. This time we make it 30 from under the gun, cutoff re-raises to 110. I make it 440, leaving him about 1300 behind if he calls, and he does. The flop is 996 rainbow with 1 spade. I fire 320 and he jams for 1300 total. It's a pretty dry board and I didn't really feel like gambling. I only have to be right about a third of the time here based on the size of the pot and his jam, but I decide to lay it down. Not entirely sure about that one. It's kind of weird for him to jam over the top of the 4-better with pairs like jacks and tens. Maybe he had a hand like aces or kings and just felt that a 5-bet shove pre-flop would have been too strong. Or he has a 9. There's 2 combos of ace-9 left, I guess. This hand kind of sums up how I've been running and playing lately. Feel like I've just been missing a lot of boards, bluffing a bit too much, and just getting owned. This hand was a small exception to that. We have Jack-8 of diamonds in the low jack. We open to 30, hijack calls, and we are heads up. The flop is 8-5-5, 2 hearts, and we c-bet 40. He calls, and the turn is a 10. Seemingly a bad card for us, but he shouldn't have that many 10s unless it's the 10 of hearts. If he floated with backdoor spades of some sort, he now has a flush draw. This time we bet 50 and he calls again. The river is the jack of clubs and we now have 2 pair. But what hand is really going to call us if we fire again? Probably not much, especially since we don't hold any of the flush blockers, giving our opponent more flush draws, meaning that they're probably going to fold to any bet. So we check and hope to induce a bet from our opponent, who does just that, and we have an easy call. Turns out he had ace-king, which in my opinion was probably a good check back on the river since it beats all of my non-pair flush draws. Next, we're short-handed, we open king-9 off on the button, and our opponent in the big blind calls. We see a flop of 10-4-4 rainbow. I think this is a spot where you bet close to your entire range, but not too sure honestly. I decide to throw out a bet of 20, and he raises to 100. I figure it was nice to bet since we blocked 2 backdoor flush draws that can call, but he's raised and it feels like blocking backdoor flush draws seems unfavorable now because they're hands we prefer our opponent to have instead of strong made hands, so we decide to fold. Turns out I sound smarter than I am because it's actually preferable to bet more often with a spade, which is just one of those things that I don't fully get yet, but if you know why, feel free to roast me in the comments. In any case, the EV difference isn't that great between the bet and the check. One quick orbit later, and we're on the button again with pocket 9s. We raise it up to 30, small blind raises to 130, and we throw in a black chip. We see a flop of queen 7-3, 2 diamonds. Small blind bets 100 and we call. The turn is the jack of diamonds. Bit of mixed feelings on this one. He now checks. As I watched the footage back, I couldn't quite figure out what I was trying to get him to fold. I beat ace king and other low pair and suited connector type hands, and will get owned by his strong hands. It seems like I'm trying to get him to fold pocket 10s specifically, maybe jack 10 suited. It was weird. I didn't need a solver to tell me this hand was awful. After he calls the turn, the river is an offsuit 6. We both check, and I believe the hand he turned over here was ace jack. In this hand, we have the beautiful ace queen of diamonds in the small blind. We have a raise in the hijack to 40, so we pump it up to 160. He makes the call and we see king 7-5 rainbow. We bet 100 and he calls. The turn is the 8 of spades. Not a good card to continue on for our hand or our range, so we check and he checks back. The river is a 10 of spades. Well, this was another spot where I was pretty shocked by 2 weeks ago, Jenny. We see her making a bet of 240 on the river here. Damn, she really does not want to give up this pot. We get a call and it breaks my heart to see us get owned by pocket 9s. Now I wanted to check this spot not because I needed confirmation that I played like crap, but more to see what the EV loss here was and how bad of a mistake it was. It was actually surprising when I checked that the river bet wasn't terrible. In fact, it's the preferred action for ace queen of diamonds, and this is because some very strong hands like kings and 7s that are sets, and some top pair hands like king queen, king jack, king 10 like to check the turn to allow the opponent to bluff hands like ace-jack suited, ace-10 suited, 6-5 suited, sixes, etc. So by the time we get to the river, we can still credibly rep those strong hands. And for the record, his pocket nines are a pure call, so well played by him. In this hand, we have kings in the cutoff, and we 3-bet versus low jacks 50 open to 180. The bet sizes are big here because I think the $20 straddle was on. He makes the call, and we see a flop of 6-6-3 rainbow. He checks, I see bet 110, and he calls. With this size, we're not too scared of many turns except sigh. He checks. I decide that this hand is still worth a small bet, so I bet 200, about a third of the size of the pot, which is solver approved if you don't have a diamond, because you want him to have more draws when he calls and not hands that already beat you. Anyway, he calls, and the river is the 7 of hearts, and we both check. Kings are no good, and he wins a nice pot with ace queen. It's not going good, guys. We just had another losing session today, and in the last week, I think I've lost like 9 or 10k. But who's counting, you know? Yeah. Just run bad, you know? I'm sure there's some play bad in there too, but like, I'm just not hitting flops. And then we're trying to bluff. No one's folding to our bluffs this week, unfortunately. Just a bit of a painful slow bleed, really. No real mega punts, just bleeding. There's just not much I can say on that. Hopefully it picks up. And it's so annoying because last week I hit another peak. You know, like if you're a profitable poker player, every few weeks or days or months, you would hit a new peak because it's like your peak profit for your career, unless you're in like a ginormous downswing. So I don't know when my next peak is going to be. It's gonna take me a while to dig out of this like mini downswing. I might not get a chance to play for a little bit. Work's gonna be super busy, and then I'm going to Hawaii with my friends. But yeah, just really shitty to end the week like this, but oh well, such is life. Hey, so I thought this would be a good episode to talk about bankroll management. There are a million YouTube videos out there on bankroll management, but I thought I'd just share my approach to it as someone who works and plays poker as a hobby, but a serious and profitable hobby. We've all heard of the approach where your bankroll should be a certain multiple of your buy-in. 20 times your buy-in is often a number that's thrown out, maybe 25, 30, 40, 50, depending on your risk appetite. One thing that should be obvious that isn't obvious to some people is that bankroll management is not a strategy for winning. It's simply a strategy to not go broke. So what that means is if you have a bankroll of $10,000 and you're capping yourself at your buy-in being 1/20th of your bankroll, then you can afford to buy in for 500. Let's say you lose 6 buy-ins, and in the process of losing, you've already kind of broken your bankroll rule. So when you get down to 7,000, then you can only afford to buy in for 350. That might mean moving down stakes. And eventually, if you're a losing player, you'll get to a point where you can't afford to buy in even at 1.2 or 1.3. And if you don't have another means of replenishing your bankroll, maybe through disposable income, through a job or something, then you should probably quit. Now, this method doesn't account for your edge in the game. And so this second method that I've used in the past does. I learned it randomly in grad school in a sports analytics class taught by Professor Mark Brody. In the Kelly criterion, the percentage of your bankroll that you can afford to buy in for is dependent on your likelihood of winning in the game. This formula looks like this. As you can see, the percentage of your bankroll you can be betting is equal to your likelihood of winning in the game minus the likelihood of losing divided by the odds. To adapt it to poker, I've made some slight simplifications. So your odds, I've just assumed to be 1. So we're purely just looking at your likelihood of winning over the long run, whether that be 55%, 60%, or even greater. So for example, if you think you have a slight edge in the game and you think over the long run, your likelihood of winning in the game is 55%, then you put 55% here, 45% goes on the top here, and then you would divide that by 1, and then this will spit out the percentage of your bankroll that you can afford to be losing in a session. Now, does that mean that you should buy in for this amount? I would say no. It really depends. Let's say, for example, you usually quit after 4 buy-ins, then I would just divide this number by 4. So here you should be buying in for 250. And if you usually quit the game after losing 3 buy-ins, then you will want to divide this number by 3. Another great thing about the Kelly criterion is that the bet size that it spits out is not really a cap. It's more the optimal bet size. So you can actually also use this as a means of testing whether you should be moving up stakes or not. So I made this quick calculator. It's got the formulas built in. So let's say you have a bankroll of $30,000 and you're comfortably playing 1-3 and you're crushing the game. So your win rate, let's say, is 60%. So here you have 60%, you put in your bankroll of $30,000, your max buy-ins per session is 4, and what it's saying is you can afford to lose 20% of your bankroll every session. If your stop loss is 4 buy-ins, then you can afford to buy in for $1,500. Obviously, this is a lot for 1-3, which means that you could think about moving up stakes. So in the second table, we have, let's say your edge on 2-5 is not as great, but you're still a winning player. So let's put 55% here. Your bankroll is 30,000, and let's say you're like shot taking a little bit, and maybe you're willing to lose 2 buy-ins or 3 buy-ins per session. So let's just use 2 here. And what it's saying is that you can afford to lose 10% of your bankroll each time. Your stop loss is 3,000, which means if you're capping yourself at 2 buy-ins, then you can afford to buy in at 1,500. This is just kind of like a tool. Obviously, this is not a hard and fast rule that you should follow 100%. It's just a way of thinking about your risk appetite and your edge in the game, because sometimes people say, I'm breaking the 20x buy-in rule because I think my edge in the game is that great. Well, this kind of just helps you think about how great your edge is and how much that impacts your buy-in size. I just want to say, again, this applies to players who are winning over the long run, but I think principles of this can also be used if you are a recreational player and you just want to cap your losses and you have disposable income that you can feed into your bankroll every month. Say, for example, you're a losing player and you were using the 20x buy-in rule, and then you lose 6 buy-ins in a row, then instead of moving down stakes, you might just wait for a few months. Maybe your disposable income is $1,000 a month, and then you can wait a few months and then top up your bankroll and continue playing, and you likely won't go broke. Personally, I kind of go between following the rule and sometimes not because, as I mentioned before, sometimes I take shots at higher stakes. So I'll play 10-20, 10-20-20. So that kind of breaks my bankroll rule, especially because I think I'm not winning at that game. So this formula is not going to spit out anything meaningful for me. But I do have a full-time job, which means that I just need to be aware that I'm losing in the game and be comfortable with the amount that I am losing over the long run. And that's not a good poker strategy, but I think, you know, if you play poker for fun or for other reasons, for me, it's not fun losing, but it is fun to challenge yourself mentally and play with some of the best regs in Vegas. That's kind of why I play it. And then for me, I don't wait until, you know, I get my next paycheck to replenish my bankroll, because I am profitable on 5-10. If I have a bad session on 10-20, then I'll just tell myself I won't play that for a while. I'll just stick to 5-10 and make it back that way. So that's my general approach to bankroll management. I hope this was somewhat helpful to you. With that in mind, I am actually playing on my first stream next week, which is pretty exciting. And in exercising good bankroll management, I am selling some action. So If you would like to buy some action, it is the Hustler Casino stream on Thursday. They're having a ladies' night. I will probably be selling at minimum 5% pieces. I believe the game is 10, 20, 40. But yeah, shoot me a message on Instagram. The handle is in the description. Hope you guys enjoyed watching this vlog, and I will see you on the stream on Thursday.